The volume of stuff that I see is, it's very disturbing and it's obscene. Like, you don't need stacks and stacks and stacks of paper for your printer. First of all, you can repurpose paper or not print at all, but then you can just buy paper when you need it. Like, you don't need to hoard it all and feel like there's this lack of supplies and that things are going to, be readily available. It's very interesting work. Very, very interesting.
Well, hello, everybody, and welcome to this episode of Classroom Matters with me, your host, Christy Houle. And today I get the absolute pleasure to talk with Rowena List. Rowena List is the founder of the Getting It Together organization and was quite literally born to organize. Dubbed by her clients and friends alike as the de-clutter queen, she believes that being organized in all areas of life can help us to reach our goals, mitigate stress, and be the best versions of ourselves, whatever that means for each of us. Drawing on her experience and innate expertise, Rowena can customize a solution for teachers and homeschool parents, offering effective systems, tools, and tips to meet each of their unique needs. Rowena, welcome to the Classroom Matters podcast. Thank you so much for being here.
Oh, thank you, Christy. It's great to meet. I love how we met. And I love how serendipitous this is all just fallen into place. It's great. I'm excited to be here.
Yeah. Okay. So we're going to jump right in because as we were talking before we started the actual podcast, we both have a love of organization, and you coming from a world and life of being an expert at organizing all things, and me coming from an educational background, I really wanted to try to combine the two worlds because classroom teachers and homeschool parents have a lot of stuff. And so I thought, what a great conversation. It kind of to get away from our normal conversations on this podcast. We talk about issues in the public school system and all these really serious things. I wanted to talk about something a little bit more fun, but something that can be a serious problem for folks teaching and working from home. So give us a little bit of background about how you got involved in the work, how long you've been doing this work, and some of the things that you find really fun and exciting about the work that you do.
Well, I was actually born organized, but rest assured to all of your listeners that this is a skill that you can learn. When I was in Girl Scouts, in Canada, we call them Girl Scouts, I got an award for having the most organized campsite when we would go out on our weekend trips. And I would organize my room and keep everything neat and tidy, even as a teenager. I know, I was a weirdo. I don't know where it came from. And then as I went through school and became, eligible to start working, I thought, I just don't know if I could work for somebody else. And I have been an entrepreneur since I was 19. So really my entire career life. Sure, the odd job in high school. And my first big career was in the direct selling profession. And I became very successful. I was in senior management, but I found that there was a real need for the people that were on my team to be more organized. And I helped create systems. I'm going to age myself, but this is all before computers and cell phones. So we had to have systems in place on how to follow up with clients and how to, do all of our ordering and deliveries and everything else, marketing, all of that. And so I came up with all of these systems. I guess it's just the way my brain works. And then partway through that career in the direct selling profession, I thought, there's a business here of being a professional organizer. And it was right when some of those shows were starting to come out. And I educated myself as much as I possibly could outside of what I had already taught myself, and opened up my own company, gettingittogether.ca. I'm based out of Vancouver, British Columbia, Canada. But of course, with now the web, we can work anywhere in the world, and I can coach people with their productivity issues or challenges. And it's just a whole pile of fun. It really is. It's so great to be of service and help people downsizing, clearing their clutter, and coming up with systems to help them have more time. Because Christy, that's the thing, right? People want more time. And that's one way that you can get more time is by being organized.
Okay, so let's look at your work and talk about it from the lens of education. So, teachers, especially now, are not only teaching in the classroom setting, but a lot of teachers are also teaching remote learners at the same time. And so I can imagine, back in my day when I was teaching, and I'm not going to age myself as much, I'm going to try not to, but way back when I was teaching, we didn't have all of the technology and the things that you're talking about. So we had files upon files and paperwork and grade books and curriculum and all of these things. And it would get so overwhelming at times, like you said, it was hard to even stay focused on what I wanted to teach. So talk a little bit about what you feel like maybe some of the challenges are for teachers in the classroom setting to stay organized and some of the challenges that maybe get in their way because of their organization.
Well, I think for sure one of the biggest challenges is for them trying to do these hybrid situations, classrooms where they're, doing online teaching as well as in-person teaching. And I'm sure that through your organization, you could come up with a whole nother podcast on, is this really a great method? It makes the teacher, I think, so fragmented because there's so many distractions. This is why people get disorganized, is because of all of the distractions that are around them. So if we can keep our day simple, our life simple, our job simple, that doesn't mean it's not without meaning and purpose, but it means that let's just have sort of this minimalist type of routine that we're conducting our day in. And I've got a friend who's a music teacher. And so I've walked with her through this whole journey that we've been going through for the last couple of years. And man, I tell you, you talk about burnout. Wow, it's just exhausting. And a big part of it too, Chrissy, is the fact that there's so many children in the classroom. So how do they, mitigate taking care of all of the needs of all these different children? And it comes down to really compartmentalizing, breathing, having a plan, and doing the best that you possibly can do in a day, and not trying to think that you can do it all. That's the key, is that, for everybody, whether you're a teacher or not, you can't do it all.
Mm-hmm. And what are some of the negative impacts that you've seen on folks that really just can't get their organization together? Like, how does that affect them in their daily life?
Oh, well, big time. It affects their health because they're not organized enough, and they run out of time. So they're not able to get to the gym or do some personal care, self-care. It can affect their relationships because maybe their, friends or partners, spouse are waiting for them. They're always late. And that, begets a lot of resentment, and they're regretting their friends. And then there's also, this stress on the body of scurrying and being in this complete overwhelm and anxiety when they could be a little bit calmer and be breathing through their day and through their life. So it really has a lot of negative impact financially too, because, a lot of times people can't find what they're looking for, so they just go and buy another one. And then they end up with, 25 Sharpies, and they only need one or two. And so then it costs a lot of financial burden as well for people.
Yeah, guilty on that. It's so funny that you say that, because I guarantee you there are some teachers listening right now and some homeschool parents that have done, I've done it. I have, went through phases where I need to declutter. So I throw a whole bunch of stuff away in a scurry, and then I have to go and repurchase, or I can't find something like you said. And so I might have 27 black Sharpies or 24 blue pens or whatever the case may be. So that's a really good little tip for people, is to really get yourself organized, because you probably are wasting money. Like how much is a Sharpie? I don't know, $3, but still you don't need 10 of them. So what about through the lens of homeschooling, right? So the teacher's trying to juggle everything within the classroom setting and possibly a hybrid setting at the same time. But then when we look at homeschool families, they're juggling pretty much everything. So, how are you seeing that organization can really help homeschool families, especially if they're homeschooling multiple kids?
Oh, yeah, well, for sure they need to have a schedule. It's proven that people work better with routine and structure. So having a schedule, and I think let's talk about, if you've got multiple children, because if you've got one, you just scale this right back. But let's say in your case, Chrissy, you've got three children, having three different colors of folders, pens, that sort of thing for each child. So one child is, all of their stuff is in blue folders, blue pens, blue everything. The next one is in green and the next one is in red. And that way, because we're visual, that way you can see at a glance, oh, I need my son's Tyler's things. So let's just pull out the red folder, and everything that's in the red folder is pertaining to him. It's not all in a big pile on your desk. It's not in a big shambles on the dining room table or the kitchen counter. And it really takes a lot of discipline to, at the end of each day, to take those, I call them 15 minutes to freedom. Take 15 minutes and organize all of the papers that you're going to need for the next day, and making your lunches, getting your clothes ready, whatever it might be. But you take those 15 minutes at the end of each day, so that then in the morning when you wake up, you got a clean slate, you're ready to go. And keeping compartmentalized, even for kids that are maybe doing, some are homeschool and some are coming from school, each having a hook with, that's where their backpack goes, and that's where they've got a little cubby, and that's where their school notices go and things like that. So again, you as the parent can go in there and know exactly, this is all pertaining to Tyler, Bobby, Mary, whoever that you're homeschooling and taking care of.
So let's bring the kids into this mix, right? So we've got teachers getting organized. I love the idea about the different colored folders. If you are homeschooling multiple children, the hooks, kids that are, like you mentioned, I have two kids in public school, one kid still at home and homeschool. So I've got it coming from all directions. And I love those tips. At what point do you bring the kids in to be somewhat responsible for their own organization? And how does that sort of manifest itself when you have certain areas for things, but you're struggling to get your kids to stay organized on top of trying to keep yourself organized?
Right. And it's about starting early with the kids. And, if we backtrack, most often children have way too much stuff. So then in their minds, they're in overwhelm. And even when kids are little and you say to them, go clean up your toys. And if they've got toys in the kitchen and their bedroom and the playroom, it's very confusing for them as to where they're supposed to go and what they're supposed to do. And so I encourage my clients to have zones. So you would have a toy zone, a school zone. We have eating zones. Hopefully that's at the table and not throughout the entire house as well. And when your children are younger, and you give them a basket and say, go pick up all your cars or go pick up all your red toys, it's teaching them from an early age. So let's now fast forward. Let's say you weren't able to do that. And so now they're of an age where, are they going to help out? Maybe they're getting into that pre-teen age and they don't care what anything looks like in the house. Then it's a matter of, turning it into a game and creating what I call household responsibilities. I don't like to call them chores. It seems like it's got such a negative connotation. So household responsibilities. So again, let's say to Stephen, hey, these are your household responsibilities. You need to come in and hang up your backpack, pull out anything that's in there that could go moldy and smell bad. Put your school notices here. Giving them one or two tasks at a time, not a whole list of things that, again, can become very overwhelming for everybody, not only children. And then, the least amount of stuff that a person has, then that takes away from that having so much responsibility. So if they only have one backpack as opposed to 3 or 4, which I've seen in homes, then they know exactly that they have to be responsible for that one backpack. So it's really about purging down the volume of stuff and the volume of shoes. Here's where your shoes are going to go underneath your backpack. They're your school shoes. Here's your backpack. Here's where your notices go. Keeping it, again, really simple and keeping the volume of stuff down will really help.
Yeah. And it's funny because I think that we have a tendency to acquire, especially teachers and homeschool folks, we seem like we just don't want to throw anything away. I mean, there have literally been years where I have looked through papers and I still am holding on to papers from when my children were kindergarten, first grade. And my oldest son is now a senior in high school, if that tells you anything. And I think I might need this for whatever reason. How do we help teachers and homeschool parents know what to purge and when to purge it?
Well, the 3 deadliest words, just in case.
Oh gosh, I have to write that down, Rowena.
Yeah, write that one down, Chrissy. It's so good that, people keep things just in case. Well, what? Just in case your son comes home from school, high school, and says, Mom, I really want to see my pictures that I did when I was in kindergarten. No, it's never going to happen. We hold on to these things because we think that if we let them go, we're letting go of the person. We're going to let go of the memories. We're going to, oh my gosh, whatever. It's just you're coming from a place of fear. Go through those papers and ask yourself, if this paper was lost in a flood or a fire, how devastated would I be? You couldn't replace it. You could with your sweater that you're wearing right now, the top that I'm wearing, if it was replaced in a flood or a fire, would we replace it? Well, we would replace it with something, yes, another top, or same with our eyeglasses or our computer. But papers are a little bit different. And people keep papers just in case their son's going to come home after he's gone to university, gotten married, has kids. He's going to come home and say, Mom, I really want that box of all the papers that you saved for me from when I was starting school. It's never going to happen. It's, where they're learning how to draw an A and they're learning how to draw a stick person. We all did it, and we're all here to prove that we did it. It can now all be recycled. And if there's something really, really precious, well, have a memorabilia box for each child, but just a small memorabilia box that you put these things in. Or better yet, you could take a picture of it and have a file on your computer that is, Stephen's memorabilia, Mary's memorabilia, and then you've got it all on your computer.
Wow, that is, I'm just sitting here like wanting to laugh at some of this and shaking my head at some of this because it is so true what you said, that when you keep something for just in case your son or daughter, or old students, especially old students, if you're a teacher, right? And you have teachers that are keeping this stuff. I mean, I still have yearbooks from when 20 years ago when I started my first teaching job. Why? But for some reason, just in case, I want to look back and remember this, but it's never going to happen. And so your advice makes so much sense, but it's just so hard for us. And I think especially women to do that purging. And so I love the idea of a memorabilia box, especially for teachers. If you had that one special class that you really loved, and there were really some special things that happened, keeping maybe 1 or 2 things from that classroom, or homeschool parents keeping that, 1 or 2 things per year, so you just have a small little memorabilia box per year of school, or per, I don't know, zone of life. Maybe we could do zones for your life, like, right? Ages 1 to 5 is zone 1, ages 5, I don't know. But yeah, I mean, it's such a great tip because we really have a hard time doing that. And so when you're talking about purging, what would you say, in your expert opinion, is the amount of things you should keep, and what are the amount of things that you should get rid of? So if you came to my home and I'm homeschooling my children, or I was a teacher and I had a box of 35 drawings of my kids from the last couple of years, would you say get rid of all of them or maybe keep one or two?
I would say keep one or two. And what you could do though, prior to recycling all of the pieces of art, is you could, either put them on a string on the wall or put them on the floor and have the artist, your child, stand with the picture or sit with the pictures, take a picture of them with all their art. And then you pick out the one or two pieces where you just say, oh yeah, these are awesome. And I've seen parents that have taken those pieces of art and actually framed them so that they can see them. This is the thing that is so interesting, is that we save all this stuff, but we've got it crammed in a box or crammed in the crawl space or in a damp garage. We never look at it. We don't give it a lot of care and attention, but we're keeping it just in case. And then when we do go and, maybe we have to move, or maybe there's downsizing happening, or somebody's passed away, and then you've got to go through all this stuff and you think, oh my gosh, it's just all sort of damp and moldy and dusty, and there's little mites in there, and, So really just keeping one or two of those key pieces, because the key to all of this, Christy, is that the memories are still in your heart. The memories are still with you. But people then say, well, what if I forget? What if I don't remember? Well, you've got a picture, or you've got new memories always coming in.
Yeah, that's really a great way to look at it. So I want to switch gears a little bit, and I want to talk about a couple of specific things that I feel coming out of a classroom setting, coming out of a school setting, and being a homeschool parent are sometimes issues for teachers. So I want to talk a little bit about elementary school teachers and the amount of books that most elementary school classrooms hold. Picture books, books in their libraries, and especially folks that homeschool usually have a really large collection of books for their children to pick up and read. And I know that a lot of times homeschool moms, and, I see it all over Pinterest. I see it all over my Facebook groups. How do I organize my books? How do I organize my books? I have so many. So what are some tips or strategies that you could give to elementary school teachers or homeschool parents that have a huge library of books?
Well, with books, with toys, I give the same advice, and that is to have 3 Rubbermaid bins. And those 3 Rubbermaid bins are going to be in rotation and circulation. So they're going to be January, February, March. And then January's bin is now going to be April, May, June, and you just keep rotating them. So you would take your books, divide them into the 3 bins. And then for the month of November, you've got the bin. All the books are out from that bin. At the end of November, you're going to put the books into that bin and put it into storage and bring out the next bin. Now everybody thinks they've got all these new toys or new books or, whatever. And then at the end of December, you're going to put those away and bring out the 3rd bin, which will now be for January. So your books are on a rotation. The thing is, when there's so much volume of toys, books, clothes, anything, the person looking at them goes into complete overwhelm, and they don't even know where to draw their eye to or their attention to. And we see all these people nowadays, all ages, that have varying levels of attention deficit. And they're just getting overstimulated by the volume of things that are in front of them. When we were growing up, we had 1 or 2 books. We had 1 doll, 1 stuffed animal, and we turned out okay. And it kept our mind simple and free to be a child and to bring in other things and learn other things. So I'd say doing those 3 bins, keeping it on a rotation, keeping in mind too, Christy, that that the famous rule is that we only use 20% of our things 80% of the time. So we're drawing towards our most favorite books.
Yeah.
The teacher's going towards her most favorite books, and the other ones are just sort of sitting there feeling very lonely.
No, that's a really good point, because as you're speaking, I'm thinking about my library, and everything is on a bookshelf, and it's really difficult to thumb through books on a bookshelf all the time. And you do always go to your favorites. I mean, you just always have those go-to books. So what a great strategy with the 3 tubs. So switching to another topic that I think elementary school teachers and homeschool parents is the amount of curriculum. Because when you buy a package of curriculum or you buy something as a unit study, you've usually got your teacher's manuals and you've got your student textbook and you've got your student workbook, and then you have all these ancillary items, and then you might have other, nonfiction books that go with it. And you're doing this for all of these different subjects and social studies and science and math. And a lot of times when I talk with homeschool moms or classroom teachers, they've got all this curriculum sort of just thrown all over the place, which then makes it really difficult to plan lessons, to really understand what they want their student to know. So would you suggest something somewhat similar to that strategy with the library books as you would all of the curriculum that we can build up? Or how would you go about giving some tips on how to organize curriculum and content materials that you're wanting to use to teach?
Oh, again, for sure, you want to have a system in place. The challenge, I guess, would be is as a teacher, if you're teaching multiple subjects within a day, if you're an elementary school teacher, you're teaching multiple subjects. So you can't really have that stuff put away in a bin. But you would need to have either a file system that, again, could be color coded so that everything pertaining to geography is in one color and everything pertaining to science is in one color. But looking at those and thinking, okay, can I get some of this online now? Can I become somewhat paperless? Which is so interesting because with the invention of the computer, they thought that we would be paperless. But in fact, we have 20% more paper. And why? Just in case. People print things off just in case.
Yeah.
They buy the paper version just in
Just
case.
in case. Yep.
You know what? Just in case their computer's going to crash and they'll never ever find it again. There's always a place. So if your computer crashed with the information, one of your colleagues would have the information, or wherever you got that original from, they would have that information. And chances of all of that happening are like so slim.
Mm-hmm.
So, do you need to keep all the manuals and the agendas and everything else, or just the actual curriculum that you're going to teach in a file folder in particular colors pertaining to each subject?
Yeah. And so as you get yourself organized and, we're looking at tips, we're hearing what you're saying, we're going to get ourselves organized. How do you maintain that level of organization, right? Because there's been times where I myself will get really, really organized and feel really great about my room or my classroom setting or my files. And then a month later, I'm kind of back to now I have a big mess. I have to start all over. I feel overwhelmed again. So what are some tips and strategies for actually maintaining a level of organization so you don't find yourself having to reorganize all the time?
Well, organizing is really like personal care. It needs to be done every single day, but just in small amounts. So just like we floss and brush our teeth 2 or 3 times a day, we need to, if we pick it up, we need to put it back. And what happens quite often is people will be using a pile of papers or be using musical instruments or whatever the case might be, whatever they're teaching, and they think, okay, I'll put it away later. But I say that if it takes less than a minute to do it, you want to do it right away. And if it's a longer project and it's going to take longer than a minute, then you need to schedule that into your day, into your work day. And people don't see that as being crucial, but it is. It's crucial to schedule planning, as most teachers do. They all schedule the planning, but you need to also schedule the cleanup, the getting organized, and not procrastinating. This is a key word, is a lot of times people are so tired and overwhelmed. They say, oh, I'll do it another day.
Right.
And that's, what happens when all of a sudden in the new year, we find that we've maybe gained an extra 5 or 10, 15 pounds because, we haven't been on top of our health the same way, our exercise the same way. And that's what happens with clutter. It just breeds,
Yes.
multiplies. And so we need to be on it every single day. Just 15 minutes. Grab your cup of tea at the end of your the end of your school day and just tidy up, ready for when you come in the next morning.
And that sort of leads me to, doesn't that just really build healthy habits? If you get in a habit of doing that every evening, and it's funny because we were just talking about this morning. My mother-in-law comes over and helps out with the kids, a couple of days a week. And I always try to have everything clean the night before, because I know if I don't do that ahead of time, she's going to come over and feel like she has to do it. And so we have a really good routine of just making sure, we're all coming down to a clean kitchen every morning, making sure we're all waking up to a clean environment, because it does make you feel better. But I think that that's a habit that has been formed over time. And so do you think that a lot of it is just folks have to get into these small habits of the things you were talking about, the 15 minutes to freedom and the 10 or 15 minutes at the end of the day, that these are just habits that we have to build?
Oh, most definitely. Most definitely they're habits. So that's why everybody can learn to be organized and to stay organized, because it is simply just a habit. It's a skill that you just say, okay, this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to put away all these things so that when I come back to school in the morning, or come down to my kitchen, or come down to my home office, it steps up to greet me. It's there.
So where can all of our listeners find you? Where can they contact you and just stay in touch?
I'm at gettingittogether.ca, and I do have a free ebook, Christy, for your listeners, so they can download. It's top 10 tips on staying organized. And they can also have a free discovery session, which is done over the phone. And that's to help them with their particular organizing needs, or procrastination needs, or time management needs. And we do a quick consultation. And I do provide hands-on organizing, coaching, and professional speaking engagements as well.
All righty. Well, thank you so much for that. And for everybody listening, we will have all of Rowena's information, all of the things she just mentioned listed in the description below. So you can reach out to her and really take advantage of some of this great organizational help. Thank you for being with us on this episode, Rowena. It has been extremely interesting. And I know that our listeners really were able to gain some great tips and strategies in their world of organization from you. So thank you so much.
My pleasure. I'm picturing you running to the bins at the after we end our conversation, and going through the papers and starting to recycle them.
Yes, you have it correct, Rowena. That's probably what I'm going to do this afternoon. Some of our listeners might be like we are. Like, I enjoy organizing. I always feel like a sense of accomplishment when I've done something like that, and it makes me really happy. So hopefully some of our listeners feel like that, and they'll be scurrying away from listening to this podcast to organize some of their items as well. So thank you again, and thank you everybody for listening. This is Christy Houle signing off for this episode of Classroom Matters. And don't forget to check out all of our great resources at the educate.today website.